Hi everyone, I'm Arkadi from Opower, so I sort of somewhat reformulated the question about feedback and sort of wanted to think about it this way. So how do we engage people in their homes with real-time feedback? I'm going to give you two answers to that question tonight. So this is my first answer. And the answer is we don't. And that's because, this is a stat from Accenture, the average American spends 6 minutes a year thinking about their home energy usage. So I'm sure that everyone here spends a lot more than that, but as Karen said, you're not normal. And energy information is boring, at least it is to most people. And if you weren't bored by it, you would certainly be confused by it, because what's a kilowatt hour is something I've been still wrestling with. So it's what does it mean, even if you had access to a lot of it? So Opower sort of saw this world, and rather than really trying to change it, at least at first, we decided to try to operate within it and see, could we create a product that would help people save energy, even if this is what people think about energy information. And so the product, which Karen described, was enormously based on this work by Bob Cialdini, the door hanger experiment. And what we really wanted to do was give people context, and the way we do that is by creating, this is a paper report that we now send every month to millions of homes around the country. Fundamentally, it does two things. It tells you how does your energy use compare to 100 similarly sized homes in your neighborhood, and how does it compare to the most efficient neighbors in your neighborhood. And then on the back, it will tell you what are the 3 or 4 tips based on the way that you're using energy, and other data that we are pulling in. So we'll know typically the date of construction of your home, whether you're a tenant or a homeowner. So if you're a tenant, we're not going to suggest that you buy a new refrigerator. You're not going to do that. What are the tips that make sense for you? And to create a very simple report, we typically send homes 6 to 9 of these a year that probably people could find useful maybe in about 6 minutes a year. Maybe it'll take 12 minutes. But you could learn something from this really by looking at it for a minute or two. We started about 5 years ago, and I guess Karen knew us from the beginning before I knew about Opower, because I only showed up about 1.5 years ago. But the company's grown enormously. We now work with 70 utilities all over the country, and we send out these reports, as Andy had described, white labeled, so they're under the names of these utilities. So if you're a customer of one of these utilities, you won't see Opower's name. You'll see the name of your utility providing you this information. But we are actually doing the analysis, producing the reports, and sending them on behalf of the utilities. What we've seen is when we send these reports, we construct a experimental design that's not so different from Cialdini's door hanger experiment, because in addition to leaving door hangers on a whole bunch of homes, they also were reading the meters of homes that they were not leaving door hangers on. And so what we do is we figure out what the goals of a utility are, how much energy do you want to save, and let's say then we determine we're going to run a program to 100,000 homes, but we'll actually pick more homes than that, enough homes to create a statistically significant control group. So we might pick 125,000 homes and randomly select 25,000 of those homes not to get reports. And then what we do, like a drug test, drug trial, is we look at what's the difference in performance between the treatment group, the group of homes that are getting the information, and the group of homes that are not getting the information. And on average, we see between 1.5% and 3% savings for the homes that are in the treatment group versus the control group. And we are able to maintain these savings. There's sort of a ramp of the build-up to this rate of savings, which takes about 6 or 9 months. And then we are able to maintain these savings, and we've been running these programs now for 4 years, and actually gets marginally a little bit better in the second year and the third year, the savings rate. And 1.5 to 3% doesn't sound like a lot, but this is not an opt-in program. So you don't volunteer for Opower. We and the utilities we work with volunteer you, so you can opt out of it if you like. But because it's an opt-out program, and because it's something that utilities just start sending to people, we're able to send this to millions of homes, and that adds up to a lot of savings. So we just had an event outside of Boston with the governor of Massachusetts earlier this month and announced that we had hit our 1 terawatt-hour savings goal. What's 1 terawatt-hour? Well, it's enough to take an enormous amount of CO2 out of the air. It's enough to help the families that have got these reports save $100 million on their energy bills, and it's enough to power 90,000 homes for a year. So it's a pretty substantial impact, and we expect it took us 5 years to hit 1 terawatt-hour. We'll hit 2 terawatt-hours in savings by the end of this year. And what started with the paper report has become a more extensive platform where we are also building the portals where a utility customer will look at their information online, sending information by email, and all of it is driven by the same data analytics and data that we're getting from the utilities and data that we're getting from other sources to take this very complicated picture but present it to the end customer in a very simple way. But now let's get back to that question. So I gave you my first answer. Maybe there is another way to engage people. Maybe there is a way to change the 6 minutes into 12 minutes and 6 hours or 12 hours or a lot more time engaging with energy, and I'll sort of try to describe a few of the ways that we're trying to do that. So one thing that we've seen is that when people get these reports, not only do we get some of these behavioral savings, people getting a bit better with thermostat or with the lights, we see higher levels of participation in other utility efficiency programs. So people who are in the treatment group are participating in other utility efficiency programs at higher rates. But don't be confused. The participation level in utility efficiency programs is incredibly low. So we're talking about maybe there's 1% of the service areas participating in a refrigerator rebate program. We push that up to 1.2%. But that's a significant impact. And what we're working on is, what about if we told people about programs and targeted programs to the right programs to the right people. So you don't want, you're not going to do a lot for energy savings if you target a refrigerator rebate to somebody who's going to take their old refrigerator and put it in their garage. You're not going to save a lot of energy if you're targeting a refrigerator rebate to somebody who a home where a new refrigerator was bought because a rebate was redeemed 3 years earlier, but the home's changed hands and the new owner wants a Sub-Zero, not the equally efficient GE refrigerator that was put in 3 years ago. What about if you targeted the homes that actually had the most inefficient refrigerators? Or if you knew they had an efficient refrigerator, you focused another opportunity on that. So that is something that we are beginning to do much more of, and we expect to see that really help the potential savings. Another thing that we're doing in partnership with Honeywell, which is the biggest seller of thermostats, is, and I was not here during the day yesterday, so I guess there was a presentation about programmable thermostats. So you guys all know the challenges of getting people to actually use them. And so we're going to be the software on Honeywell's web-enabled thermostats, ones that are linked to a Wi-Fi network. And the strategy is really going to be to use some of the same techniques to make it very easy for people to program their thermostats, and in fact to do most of it away from the thermostat itself, to do most of it on the phone. And it'll also enable things like demand response, where you can easily opt in to allow your thermostat to be taken over by the utility when they need the extra power. And another thing that we launched a couple months ago is partnership with Facebook and NRDC. It is a social energy application that anybody can join. So go to social.opower.com and please sign up for it. Basically, all you need is a Facebook login, and that will bring in your social network. And then to get in the energy information, there are two ways to do it. You can either type it in, or if you are the customer of one of 17 of the utilities that we work with, which represent 19 million homes in the US, we have something called Utility Connect, which means that if you type in your account number, all of your energy information will be brought into the platform. And what this does is, instead of just comparing you to an anonymous group of neighbors, you can compare yourself to people that you actually know, or at least can identify. And you know, I think what's the sort of like meeting point between my first answer to the question and the second answer to the question? And I think the thought, and what I guess I'll try to leave you with, is that you know, the potential of engaging people in a more, getting people more engaged about their energy use, I think you have to start by recognizing where people are coming from. And if we're going to help people be more energy efficient, we have to be incredibly efficient in how we're engaging people. Because if we're demanding enormous amounts of time or enormous investments, we're going to lose enormous numbers of people, which may be fine in some cases, where we're really trying to get the most engaged, the people who really, really want to do this stuff. But if we want to get everybody else, I think we have to recognize some of the challenges. And I'm the director of policy at Opower, so I'm going to sort of spin this thought into sort of a more grandiose 1-minute idea for what this all means. But you know, agriculture in the U.S. in 1950, between 1950 and 2000, the average an acre of land became 3 times as productive. And between 1950 and 2000, the amount of money that American families spend on food went from 20% of their income to 9% of their income. And agriculture went from an issue that was part of debates in presidential campaigns to something that people don't talk about that much anymore. And there's some bad things about that, but there's also some very good things about that. And I think when we're thinking about how we can help people save money and save energy, we have to recognize that part of what we're trying to do is make energy a smaller part of people's lives. And to do that, I think we've got to be respectful of people's time and where they're coming from. And what we really want to do as a national policy is increase our energy productivity so that for every unit of energy we're consuming, we're getting more out of it. So that's it.